Hello everyone, my name is Kimberly Woff and I am here today to interview Richard Hay, who is Head of Planning and Operations at Northumberland Clinical Commissioning Group. Now Richard, you've been very heavily involved, in fact leading, the vaccination programme in Northumberland, so how's that going?
It's going really well, thanks Kim, we've vaccinated over 50% of the eligible population in Northumberland now, over 170,000 doses of the vaccine that we've given out, and that means to date we've got over 75% of our over 50s in the county vaccinated, which is a fantastic position to be in less than 12 months on from the start of the pandemic. If somebody had said a year ago we'd have had half the population vaccinated by now, I don't think people would have believed us, so it's a fantastic position we've got ourselves into.
But there's a lot of people saying that Northumberland are behind other parts of the country. Is that the case?
No, that's not the case. The vaccine rollout is progressing at a different pace in every individual area of the country. The population of each area and the demographics in terms of the age of the population are different, so it means there will be a slight variation in how the programme rolls out across the country, but we're not behind in Northumberland. In fact, we're leading the North East region in terms of local authority areas and our vaccination rates. And the north of England in general has made fantastic progress with the vaccination programme and is outperforming areas in the south of the country, so we're absolutely not behind.
Okay, Northumberland isn't behind, in fact they're doing really well by all accounts. But are some parts of the county having to wait a bit longer than others?
I think a vaccination programme in a county the size of Northumberland is always going to be difficult to ensure that the rollout is at the same pace throughout the county. The challenges we've got in Northumberland of our geography and our rurality mean that we will always encounter difficulties, I suppose, in making sure that rollout is as fair and equal as possible. I think the situation we've found at the moment is that those residents in the more rural parts of our county, in the north and the west, are having to wait slightly longer to be contacted by their GP to be vaccinated. Purely because of the travel distance to some of the larger vaccination sites, those residents have chosen to stay closer to home and be vaccinated by their GP. So GPs there have probably got a slightly larger proportion of vaccinations to get through. Nobody's being left behind and nobody's being missed though. It's just all about where patients are choosing to have their vaccine in a location that's most convenient for them.
So a lot of residents though, they're getting letters and they find it really hard to book online some miles away. Why is that?
So the really important thing to clarify here is that there are two routes for everybody to access their COVID vaccination. There's the local route via your GP, who are working with other GP practices in groups called primary care networks. They will contact you to invite you in for a vaccine, either at your local GP practice or at one of our local vaccination services. There is also the national booking service which is running alongside that, which is where your letters have all come from. So the letters you get enable you to access the national booking service, which is an online booking tool to access a vaccination. We know that system has caused a lot of problems for people, a lot of frustration. I've compared it to when tickets get released for a festival or when tickets get released for a music concert and there's a rush to fill those slots up. I think it's fair to say the national booking system has been inconvenient for a lot of people, and we do know people have had problems. So my advice to those people would be, if you want to receive your vaccine more locally, it's a case of waiting for your GP to contact you. If you want to persevere with the national system and get yourself a slot, that's absolutely fine, but nobody has to travel out of the area to receive their vaccine. They can get it more locally if they choose to wait and be patient.
Right, so there's two ways to get your vaccine then.
Yeah, so I think people often think the NHS is one huge organisation, which in some ways it is, but in other ways there are lots of different parts of the NHS, and our colleagues in primary care networks and general practice are operating alongside the national vaccination programme and working in tandem, but the routes to access both of those places to get your vaccine are slightly different.
So what would your advice be to someone who maybe couldn't travel but are keen to get the vaccine?
So our advice all along has been that patients have a choice as to where they receive their vaccine. If anyone has any difficulty travelling, or if getting to one of the larger vaccination sites that are available on the national booking system is going to be inconvenient, then people are absolutely able to wait and be vaccinated more close to home. We've also commissioned via the Clinical Commissioning Group a transport service to help people who have real difficulty travelling to get to their vaccine appointments. That's something we've done in partnership with Age UK, and have already transported thousands of residents to and from their vaccination appointments. That's something your GP should ask you about when they contact you for your vaccination appointment. So I think our advice in general is that if you are able to travel and you're willing to go out of the area for your vaccine, feel free to try and use that national booking service and get a slot. But I do know that slots on there are hard to come by, and can be incredibly frustrating. So at the same time, feel free to wait, to be patient, and you will be contacted by your GP in due course.
So in order to get this transport help, it would be one of the appointments from the GP. They couldn't book that to go to a national...
Yeah, that's right. So the Age UK service is something we've provided through the CCG to enable general practices to help get patients to the vaccination site. So at the point of being contacted by your GP, you should be offered transport if it's something that you need.
So these large vaccination centres then, there's one at the Centre of Life, and I think there's one in Washington as well. Why not Northumberland?
So the reason we haven't stood up a large vaccination centre in Northumberland up to now is, again, going back to the answer I gave before about our geography and our rurality. There's no real ideal location to put a large vaccination centre in the county without disadvantaging one or more areas. So say, for example, we decided to put it in Hexham. Residents in Morpeth and Alnwick and Berwick would then, rightly feel that they've been overlooked. If we put it in Berwick, likewise, residents in the west of Northumberland would feel they'd been overlooked. So our preference in Northumberland was that we prioritise supply of the vaccine to our 10 local vaccination services in primary care, because they're best placed to enable the vaccine to be rolled out to their local residents.
So, what are you going to offer Northumberland instead if a vaccination centre is not the right way to go?
So we are doing lots of work in the background to get more options available for Northumberland residents, particularly on that national booking service. Residents may have started to notice that there are now some community pharmacies available to be booked on that service, and we're working hard to enable some more of those to be stood up. So that'll mean that residents can access the vaccine either through their GP, or the national booking service will start to provide options in Northumberland at pharmacy sites. And we continue to explore the viability of larger vaccination centres going forward as we move into the younger cohorts of our population.
So where are you up to now with the cohorts?
So in terms of progress that we're making, we're working towards the government's deadline of having offered everybody in priority groups 1 to 9 a vaccination by the 15th of April. So in plain English, that's everybody over 50 or anybody with an underlying health condition. We're making really good progress against that target. And we're vaccinating people right across those cohorts. We're still sort of mopping up the last people in cohorts 5 and 6, as well as starting to make really good progress on cohorts 7, 8 and 9. So if you haven't been contacted yet by your GP and you think you should have, you will be contacted very soon. We've been assured that we'll get enough of the vaccine into the county to enable us to hit that target. So yeah, please continue to be patient.
So why are we being told not to contact our GP about the vaccine? Why should we be waiting?
So the teams in primary care delivering the vaccine are working incredibly hard, and the process of booking people into vaccine appointments is very labour intensive and is a really important task that involves ringing patients, texting patients, and we're working through people in priority order, as has been advised to the government by the Joint Committee on Vaccines and Immunisations, the JCVI. So our practices are working down their lists, as I say, in priority order, and trying to get through people as quickly as possible. The reason we've asked people not to contact their GP is that every call they take from a resident asking when their vaccine is going to be potentially stops them from making a call to invite somebody in. So yeah, that's why the advice is not to contact your GP about your vaccination. However, what we do want to encourage is that for all of your other health needs, or if you feel unwell or you feel you need to speak to a general practitioner about your health and well-being, please do continue to contact your GP about that. We do remain open for business in primary care other than vaccinations, and it's really important that if you feel unwell and you want to see a doctor, you still do contact your practice.
I think that's really important. I think there's so much on the vaccine now that people are thinking, I'm not going to bother contacting my doctor, I've been told not to. But yeah, you're right, it's so important. The NHS is still there, it's still doing its day-to-day work as well as the vaccines, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. And just because we're dealing with COVID and dealing with the vaccination, that hasn't stopped, unfortunately, people getting cancer, people getting ill, people having other illnesses. We know they're still prevalent, so please, absolutely, if you have any concerns about your general health and well-being that you'd like to speak to a doctor about, please continue to get in touch. But on the vaccination front, the message very much is that we'll call you, so please wait until you get contacted by your GP for your vaccine, but everything else, speak to them as you normally would.
So a bit more about the vaccine itself then. You know, there's been a lot of concerns about its safety, that it's been rushed through. What would you say to people on that front?
So I think first of all it's worth pointing out that I'm not a clinician, but I work with a lot of clinicians on a day-to-day basis, and those clinicians that I work with are all absolutely assured that the vaccine is safe and effective. It's also been through a huge clinical assessment by the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Authority, the MHRA, as well as having been signed off by the World Health Organization and the European Medicines Agency. So these products have been stringently tested on huge numbers of people, and the clinical trials have been carried out, albeit more quickly, but on a similar scale that they would be over a longer period of time. So patients can be reassured that both vaccines are safe and are effective. You may experience a couple of side effects after having the vaccine. You might get a sore arm for a few days, similar to when you have a flu jab. You may develop some mild symptoms of a fever for a couple of days after the vaccination. But in some ways, that's proof that the vaccination is working and doing what it needs to do inside your body to provoke an immune response should you contract COVID in the future. So yeah, my advice to patients would be absolutely that the vaccines are safe and effective. Clinicians that I work with and I trust have told me that it's safe, and they've had their vaccine as frontline health and social care workers. So yeah, please don't hesitate to come forward and get vaccinated. And if you do have any concerns about the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine, there's a wealth of information out there on the CCG website, on the NHS website. I would encourage you to go and read that and reassure yourselves of the safety of the vaccine.
I guess when you're saying that's really important about where people are getting that information from. There's so much circulating online, you know, you've got to really check your sources, haven't you?
Absolutely. It's really important that we try and combat some of the disinformation that's out there. I would encourage people to always get their information on healthcare and the COVID vaccine from trusted sources, the gov.uk website, the NHS website, your local GP surgery's website, and CCG social media feeds. There is a lot of stuff floats around on Facebook and Twitter, conspiracy theories, anti-vax type stuff. People are absolutely entitled to hold whatever opinion they choose, but in terms of the trusted facts of the situation, try and stick to those trusted sources when you're accessing information about the vaccine.
So we know the jab is safe, it's effective, so if people have had it, why can't they then mix with other people?
So I get that that's a really important question, and people think I've had this jab, I'm immune now, I can go about my normal daily life as I did before. It's really important to emphasise, and this is a message that's come down from Professor Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, downwards. Nobody is safe until we're all safe. So it's really important that we all continue to follow the vaccination guidance and the COVID guidance until such time as we've got the vast majority of the population vaccinated. The vaccine itself takes around 2 to 3 weeks to build up a level of immunity within your body. And we are seeing a lot of evidence emerge as to how effective it is, not just in preventing serious illness, but in preventing transmission of the virus. But that evidence is still emerging, and there is still a risk, even though you've been vaccinated, you may still pass the COVID virus on to somebody who hasn't been vaccinated, and they could develop serious illness or complications from that, or even, unfortunately, die as a result of that. So it's really important that even though we've been vaccinated, you then continue to follow the guidance until such time as we've got the majority of our population safe from this virus.
And just give us a little reminder of that guidance, Richard.
So it's the stuff you've heard so many times before, the hands, face, space. Continue now that we're allowed to meet up outdoors with people. Continue to maintain that 2 metre distance. Keep washing your hands and singing happy birthday for 20 seconds every time you do it. And in terms of your face coverings as well, please continue to wear a mask in public wherever it's advised, in shops, on public transport, and whenever you're within close proximity of other people.
And there's also fresh air now.
Absolutely, fresh air has been added to the guidance. We're getting into spring, and it's really important as we're starting to get out and about more that we do get into well-ventilated spaces to make sure we're not spreading the virus indoors.
And it's great to see we can get out and about again and get some fresh air. I think we've all needed it.
We have, absolutely. I know I've been itching to get out and about. I think one thing I would say on that, though, is just to be careful, because everyone is absolutely keen to get out there and get back to our beaches, our beauty spots that we've got in the county of Northumberland. And we may see places getting incredibly busy, so please just have your wits about you when you're out and about. If it feels unsafe or it feels like you're too close to people, then you probably are. We've all got a really good idea by now of what we are and what we're able to do and what we're not able to do. So use your common sense when you're out and about, and make sure you're not putting yourself and other people at risk.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Richard. I'm sure you're a very busy man, so I'll let you get back to doing what you do best.
Thanks very much, Kim. There's a fantastic team delivering the vaccine in Northumberland, and they're trying their very best to get it into residents' arms as quickly as we possibly can. So yeah, thank you to the public for your continued patience and support as our teams continue to get through the task of vaccinating you all. Thank you.